Morning peeps, good morning everyone. How's everyone doing? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Don't forget, if you're new to the channel, like, share, subscribe. Alright, let's quickly see what else there is to talk about before we discuss the big man, Martin Bakole, and that magnificent win over Jared Anderson on the weekend. Let's start here. Canelo Crawford ruled out by Saudi Arabian power brokers. Yeah, that fight ain't happening, people. Or at least ain't happening for now. There was a lot of talk that if Crawford came through his fight against Madrimov and Canelo beat Berlanga, that they could maybe get this fight on. I think it was February they were talking about. I think cold water's been poured on that now. Look, for a couple of reasons, maybe. Number one, I think Crawford needed to look exceptional against Madrimov. So we know that, okay, he's now good at 154. He can maybe take that double jump to 168. Although he looked good, he didn't look exceptional. And that's no slight on Crawford. Madrimov's a very good fighter. But I felt like we needed to see something a bit special for us to get really excited. And we didn't get it. And number two, maybe Canelo's demands are just too big. I think Turkey said that he sent an offer to Canelo. I think Canelo's rejected it. And I think I saw an interview, or at least read something about Canelo wanting, I think, over 100 million. So, yeah, just ain't going to happen. There is a statement. I think Turkey sort of said something on his Instagram. This is what he said. He said, just wrapped up an important meeting now with my team, planning for the upcoming fights that we will make for 24-25. I decided to disregard the Canelo fight as I don't want it anymore. Instead, I'll be focusing for the US market with bigger fights, especially for the legend Crawford. Additionally, I will support making fights for Boots, Haney, Shakur, Ortiz, Anderson, Benavidez, Zepeda, and more. It goes on to talk about sort of now all eyes on AJ Dubois and Bivol Beterbiev. Yeah. You know, when you read out those names, the two glaring omissions are Canelo and Gervonta Davis. I think to really make a stamp and to crack the American market, he somehow needs to get those two on board, and it ain't going to be easy because both are going to demand crazy money, and maybe rightfully so. Like, they will know, because the boxing circle is small, they will know what everyone's getting paid, and they will then think, 1 second, my value and my worth's a bit bigger than those other people. So they're going to demand crazy sums of money, as Canelo is doing. So look, we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, but for now, it looks like Crawford's going to maybe go, I don't know, the Virgil Ortiz route, maybe. Maybe the Chris Eubank Jr. talk sort of comes up again. Who knows how it's going to play out, but it's not going to be Canelo. Jaya Pattaya losing patience in bid for Chris Billam-Smith unification clash. I think the problem here is just dates. Chris Billam-Smith isn't scared of Jaya Pattaya. Just isn't. Chris Billam-Smith is just not that guy to be running from anyone. I think Chris Billam-Smith is ready. I think he said he'll be ready by November, December. And Pattaya obviously wants this fight on the undercard of Bivol Beterbiev in October. So they are a month apart. I guess the best thing that can happen is that they fight on the Fury Usyk undercard, maybe, or any card in between. Look, I think Pattaya wants to fight on a Riyadh season card. Makes sense. You get paid the most there, and the Riyadh season cards are October or December. That's it. But it's a good fight. That as much as I favour Pattaya, you just can't sleep on Chris Billam-Smith anymore. You can't. I think he's shown that against Okoli. He showed it against Isaac Chamberlain, although he was a favourite for that fight, and he showed it against Richard Riakporhe. He's clearly a very good fighter, very strong, very determined, lives the life fully. So that ain't going to be easy. Danny Garcia thinks Terence Crawford fight makes perfect sense if he dethrones Erislandy Lara. No fucking way, mate. You don't get that opportunity. You had that opportunity when you were both at 147. I remember an interview where, I can't remember who was doing the interview. It might have been Fight Hub or Fight Hype. And they were talking to Danny about fighting Terence. And he was like, yeah, I don't really care about that belt that Terence Crawford's got. No one cares about that belt. Something like that. I'm paraphrasing. And now all of a sudden you want to fight Crawford. Get out of here. For so long, Crawford wanted those guys on the opposite side of the road. The only one that welcomed him at the time was Sean Porter. The only one. So, no, I don't think so. Danny's lucky to be getting this fight, let alone fighting Crawford. No. Sandy Ryan, Michaela Meyer confirmed for September 27th in New York. It's going to be on a top ranked card. Bit surprising that I thought Sandy would have maybe headlined in, or at least co-main event or something on a DAZN card, but she's going to go to America and fight Michaela Meyer in her backyard. It's a good match. I like it. Really good fight. You know what? I was talking to someone about this the other day. I feel like female boxing's kind of hit a bit of a wall at the moment. There was a time, maybe about 3-4 years ago, where it got a real big boost, right? The Savannah Marshall, Clarissa Shields fight, Katie Taylor fights against Amanda Serrano. And I almost expected there to be this kind of flood of big female fights, and it just hasn't happened. Hasn't happened, has it? Don't know. I don't know what they do. I've been watching a little bit of the Olympics to see if there's any talent coming through there, but I did see a couple of interviews with some female fighters at the Olympics, and they weren't even talking about going pro. They're almost saying that they're not going to go pro. It's going to be Olympics, and then that's that. And that's a problem, because you'd like to think that there's money now in it for them to turn pro, but they don't seem to be interested. But yeah, like, who is the next sort of 20, 21, 22-year-old killer coming through? Don't know. Maybe you guys can name some names, but I just don't know them. All right, let's have a look and see if there's anything else. Caleb Plant and Rolando Romero are on the Canelo Alvarez, Edgar Berlanga undercard. That's solid. Romero will sell the fight, right? Coming off that huge knockout defeat to Isaac Cruz. Caleb Plant. Is Caleb Plant coming off the Benavidez loss, or has he had a fight since then? Have a quick look, 1 second. Caleb Plant's good, man. Caleb Plant is good value for money. Always puts in a good showing. Let's have a quick look. Did he ever fight after? No, he is coming off the Benavidez defeat. Looking back at those scorecards, he gave a good account of himself. 115, 113, 116, 112, 117, 111. It's not embarrassing. It's not embarrassing at all. All right, let's talk about the big man, Martin Bakole. For those of you that didn't watch yesterday's videos, that's Martin Bakole's gloves there that he gave me. Signed gloves. Those were the gloves he wore for the Carlos Takam fight. And he signed them and gave them to me, which is, you clearly know I am now a full member of the Martin Bakole fan club. I think Martin Bakole is a huge problem for any heavyweight. I'm trying. I was going to hold back that statement because I don't know how good Jared Anderson is, but I don't necessarily need to know how good Anderson is. I feel like I know how good Bakole is, regardless. And congratulations and well done to his team. Like, they've had to rebuild him almost on the outside looking in since that Michael Hunter defeat, because, you know, he doesn't have a big promoter. He hasn't got this sort of big amateur background where he's going to get a push. I don't know if he has a big following, right? And those things help you jump the queue a little bit. So he's kind of had to do it the hard way. And he had to reel off, after the Michael Hunter fight, he had to reel off like, I think 7 or 8 wins. And then he got the Tony Yoka fight, and they even tried to rob him of that, by the way, in France. And then he had one fight after that, and then he had the Carlos Takam fight. And it was watching him against Carlos Takam that I was like, okay, he's a problem. He's a problem, because he came in severely overweight for that fight. And look, I know Carlos Takam isn't Carlos Takam anymore, don't get me wrong, but Carlos Takam is a solid gatekeeper, always in shape. And the way in which he dismantled Carlos Takam, I remember being ringside thinking, like, he's a bit of an issue. Like, I've always heard about the sparring stories with regards to Martin Bakole, but you take those with a pinch of salt. You need to see someone in action. And seeing him against Carlos, I was like, he's going to struggle to get opportunities here, because he's a bit of a nightmare. Like, the way in which he was walking Carlos Takam down, it was almost as though he had no respect for his punch power and had bricks in his own hands. And that's kind of what he did to Jared Anderson as well. And look, I know there's a big weight discrepancy, but this is the heavyweight division. It is what it is. By the way, that weight discrepancy should, I think, tell you how good Alexander Usyk is. Because Alexander Usyk gives up the kind of weight that Jared Anderson was giving to Martin Bakole. And Alexander Usyk finds a way through boxing ability and just grit and determination to almost make up for that weight disadvantage. But that's a whole nother video. But the way Martin Bakole charges you down and allows you to tee off. Like, he's not reckless. He's not like he's taking 4 to land 1, but he almost has a disregard for your punch power. Because Jared Anderson can crack. I mean, you look at the record, 17 wins, 15 knockouts. Anderson can crack. And Anderson obviously had a game plan to target Martin Bakoli's body. And Martin Bakoli was just eating those body shots. I think they did start to take an impact, because Martin Bakoli started to put his hands and tuck up a little bit. But for the first 3 or 4 rounds, he was almost allowing Anderson to blow himself out, knowing that he's starting to close that distance. And once he got in range, Jesus Christ, it was frightening. Honestly, it was being ringside and hearing those thuds was quite scary. I think, and I'll say it again, I think it's a problem for any heavyweight. Any. Usyk, Fury, AJ, any. Like, he, for me, could be a top 5, top 6 heavyweight right now. I really believe that. Like, his left hand, his jab isn't a jab, it's a power punch. Like, it's a power shot. Like most people, the jabs, you land in your jab to start to almost tee up for the right hand, right? You're trying to setting yourself up. He's not. That jab is a power shot. It's such a hard jab. He's got really good hooks. He's got a beautiful inside uppercut. He kind of bobs and weaves a bit as well. Like, mate, honestly, I was so impressed with him. But again, having watched the Carlos Takam fight, I wasn't one of those people that are like, oh, it's only Carlos Takam. Having watched the Carlos Takam fight, as soon as I heard he's fighting Anderson, I was like, he's beating Anderson. I just know he's beating Anderson because I saw what I saw against Carlos Takam. And I was like, if that guy can come in a bit lighter, and he did, 299 against Carlos Takam, 284 against Jared Anderson, he's just going to be far too strong and big and agile for Jared Anderson. Far too big. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see what's next for him. I do believe it will be Zhilei Zhang, which is fucking... That's a great matchup, because Zhilei Zhang is such a good boxer as well. Like, good boxer, light on his feet, maybe gasses out a bit towards the end. But yeah, that's going to be an intriguing matchup. The thing about Martin Bakoli as well, like, I believe in his gas tank as well. Because I was in the gym with Martin Bakoli a few times. It was, by the way, it's so surreal being in a fighter's hotel, because they're all in the gym, they're all cutting weight, you're watching what they're doing. But I was with Martin Bakoli, so I was on a treadmill. I had about 6 or 7 treadmills, and I was a couple of treadmills away. And bear in mind, Martin Bakoli is 20 stone, right? So I was watching him, and this guy, when he jogged for about 50 minutes, 50. And that might not be impressive to you guys. I don't know if it is or not. And he was pouring out a sweat, by the way. But it was going at a nice pace. And I was thinking, fuck, you're 20 stone doing this. Like, it was a pace there where I know I'm not an athlete, but it was a pace where if I did that at 14 stone, I'm fucked. And I was thinking, this guy's got a gas tank. So he's got a gas tank. He can punch. He's got good boxing skills. It seems as though he's got a chin. Problem. Honestly, problem. And I need to do a video with my top 10 heavyweights, like, because he definitely is no worse than 6 or 7. Like, no worse. So obviously it will go Usyk, Fury. I think it will go AJ. The reason I say I think, because I think Parker's run has been better recently, but I think it'll go AJ, Parker, Kabiel, and then it's a toss-up between Zhang and Bakoli. I think that's kind of what it is. Obviously, look, on Jared Anderson, a lot of pressure on Jared Anderson, and I said this to him in the press conference, just because he's now become this American hope, right? The American don't have no young heavyweights coming through, and they don't. Deontay Wilder's done, Jarrell Miller, I think is mid-30s, so a lot of hope was on Jared Anderson's shoulders. America is struggling to find good heavyweight boxers, and I think it's just because a lot of the young guys who have that kind of size and structure to be a heavyweight just go into American football, or some even go into boxing. Some go to basketball, but the majority will go to American football. None of them are going in to a boxing gym. None of them, right? And you can understand why. I mean, if you're very, very good at American football, the rewards are just so much bigger, so much quicker. And was going to say it's less dangerous. It probably is as dangerous, but you just get paid more money. So yeah, they're going to struggle to find someone. I think Jared Anderson come again, but they're going to have to match him carefully. And that's one thing about this Riyadh season as well. I feel like maybe the fighters are taking fights they don't really want to take. Like, if it was no Riyadh season, you're not seeing Anderson Bakole. Like, his matchmakers, his promoters, his managers are not putting him in with Bakole. Like, Eddie Hearn would never ever do Anderson Bakole, nor would Frank, nor would Bob. They're just not doing that matchup. Al Heyman, no one's doing that matchup. But because the money's so big, fighters are almost taking fights that they don't really want to take, but they're going to take because you can't turn it down. I think Gerard Miller said that against for his fight against Daniel Dubois, not because he's scared of Dubois, but he wasn't physically ready. He wasn't, right? 333 pounds. He just wasn't ready, but he couldn't turn it down because the money was so big. Even if you are a Deontay Wilder coming off a near 2-year layoff, you don't really want to fight Joseph Parker. And if you lose to Joseph Parker, you don't really want to fight Zhilei Zhang next. You want a couple of gimmies to kind of, get back in it again. But you have to take those fights. So it's an interesting one. The money's so big, but the risk is also big. And I think we saw that with Jared Anderson. And hopefully his team can, I don't know, sort of make, I don't want to say easier matchups, but build him back up slowly. Again, Martin Bakole lost to Michael Hunter. He kind of fought gimmies until he fought Tony Yoka, really. And then a gimme, and then Carlos Takam. So it took him a while to get back up there. And I think Jared Anderson should almost go through the same route. He's so young. There's no problem. But what we have seen as well, there's no shame in a defeat when you're that young. Look at Daniel Dubois, that feat to Joe Joyce. Now look at him, world champion. So he can get there. That'll be a good fight down the line as well. All right, guys, girls, we are done. Peace.